Greetings from Boston. We are at the beginning of an exciting couple of weeks of tennis. Roger Federer is aiming to defend his title at the Indian Wells tournament, and I want to talk about just what problems Federer could encounter on his way to the defense of his title. According to the recent history, it's unlikely that anyone will be able to stop Federer's march to the defense of this title, but there are a few people who hold greater potential in terms of getting the better of Federer than others. So I want to talk about those contenders. I also want to talk and begin a discussion about the people behind Federer's greatness. Federer has relied on people. Federer has cultivated relationships over the course of his career, and those relationships have been critical to his success. Ultimately, I attribute Federer's genius to Federer the individual, but again, these relationships are important. We need to discuss the people behind Federer, and I want to break this discussion down into three parts. We'll do the first part today, and I want to discuss Pierre Paganini, Federer's fitness coach. In the next two parts, which will integrate into future posts, I want to talk about first Ivan Lubicic, Federer's coach, as well as Mirka Federer and the family. And both of those people are, again, very critical to Federer. They hold him accountable. They're just people that create a network of kind of dependencies for Federer. He depends on them. And I want to talk a little bit about why, in particular, he depends on Paganini. So with that said, welcome to Tennis Talk Daily. My name is Aaron Knapp. Subscribe to the channel to get the essential commentary. We're going to be covering all the major tournaments this year and a few minor ones. So we'll be situating these discussions in the context of these philosophical and historical issues that we're developing in the comments. We've got so much great tennis coming up. My prediction is that 2018 is going to be the greatest year in tennis history. It's going to be the greatest year in tennis history. We've been talking about a few reasons why. Federer is one of the reasons why it's going to be the greatest year, but there could be a few surprises around the corners, and we'll talk about a couple of those in the next few minutes. But subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see and hear. So just who could give Federer problems? Remember, Federer needs to reach the semifinals in order to retain his #1 position. But if for some reason he's unable to extend his run that deep and he loses the #1 position to Rafael Nadal, who ironically is going to be sitting on the sidelines if that were to happen, he'd become #1 while taking time off, which has happened to Federer, I think, a couple of times, or at least in the lulls or in the breaks. I think he's become the #1 just by virtue of someone else losing. But the reality is that, again, Rafa's got 600 points to defend in Miami, folks. So 600 points are gone for Rafa. At the expiration of Miami, Rafa will be without 600 of those points. So Federer will likely be able to retake the #1, even if it slips out of his grasp for, say, a week or two after, say, a disappointing performance at Indian Wells. But again, it's not likely we're going to see a disappointing performance from Roger Federer, folks. By all appearances, he's going to march right through this tournament and take the trophy. But if there are people that could give him problems, just who are they? Well, I would say Juan Martín del Potro. He's coming in on a wave of confidence after he won in Acapulco, his biggest title in a while. Usually takes Delpo a little while to kind of get warmed up, but he seems to be doing well this year. Of course, he benefited from Rafa withdrawing from the tournament, but he performed very well in Acapulco, and he will be a potential problem for Federer. There's also Dimitrov. I actually expect a pretty deep run for Dimitrov at Indian Wells, precisely because he's had a couple of disappointments. I think he's going to have to rethink things, and he's going to be able to dig a little deeper to get some fire and motivation to do well. So Dimitrov, don't count him out. he could give Federer a run for his money as well. But in terms of the younger generation, of course, you got Shapo and Chung. Those would be interesting matchups to see with Federer, but I really think the big question is Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios has, of course, shown that he can give Federer problems. The big issue with Kyrgios from Federer's perspective seems to be just breaking through Kyrgios' serve. Federer has really struggled to break Kyrgios' serve, and so he always ends up in these tie breaks. Well, Federer has been able to edge Kyrgios in the tie breaks, but when you have to go to tie breaks in every set, I mean, you are exposed, and it could possibly go either way. I mean, once you're into that kind of dynamic where basically every set is decided in a tie break, which has happened with Federer and Kyrgios. Federer will have to serve well, protect his serve vigorously, and he will have to probably take a little bit more of an aggressive approach in returning Kyrgios' serve, possibly trying to lure Kyrgios up to the net more on Federer's terms so that he can pass him easily. Remember, Kyrgios is kind of a big, lanky guy, and he does have some good net play, but if you bring him up to the net on your own terms, then Kyrgios is vulnerable at the net. The other question, of course, is Djokovic, and the big question is, you know, how deep will he be able to go? Secular Sage, one of our longtime viewers, astutely mentioned, I think, that given the limited practice that Djokovic will have coming into Indian Wells, he probably won't be able to go much deeper than, say, the fourth round or the quarterfinals. But you know what? We're due for a Djokovic surprise attack, folks. It's going to happen, maybe not at Indian Wells, possibly at Miami, certainly at some point this year. We're going to get a surprise Djokovic attack. So we can expect that. Cilic could also be a problem for Federer, but in general, listen, Federer's the one to beat, folks. I don't expect that anyone's going to be able to get the better of Federer, but those people I'm mentioning are the folks that we need to keep a close eye on. There'll be a lot more commentary on Indian Wells once we get the draw, and we'll be talking a lot more about the specific matchups once we know. So, the people behind Roger Federer. Federer met Pierre Paganini, who used to be a track and field athlete and a soccer player and really never performed at a very high level of tennis. But he met Paganini when he was just 14 years old, and then they formed a partnership in the year 2000 after Roger had turned pro, but was struggling with some endurance issues and with some fitness issues. And so Federer decided this was one way to get an edge, to really go hard on the fitness. So that's what he did with Paganini beginning in the year 2000, and Paganini put Federer on a 3-year fitness plan. At the expiration of about 3 years, that's exactly when Federer broke through. So there's a real correlation. That's exactly right. He won the Wimbledon title in 2003, broke through in 2004. So again, it was a 3-year plan, but the goals were long-term. The goals were about Federer's longevity, getting Federer fit enough to play tennis for years upon years upon years. And so that's now beginning to pay off now. Of course, Federer has been doing the fitness training the whole time. So Federer gives immense credit to Paganini for his success. And really, whenever it's mentioned, whenever someone asks Federer about who has helped him the most, he tends to bring up Pierre Paganini. Federer has a lot of fun working with Pierre, and when they go out for their practice sessions, apparently they talk just as friends. He calls Paganini a mentor as well as a fitness coach, but they talk for apparently about an hour just about non-tennis stuff and about other tennis stuff. They get along, they're friends, they have fun together. But I think one of the key elements of this is the kind of lofty vision, the elevated terms in which Paganini kind of thinks of Federer. Paganini's always talking about Federer as an artist, a genius, a dancer. He loves Federer. He holds Federer to the highest standards. That's one of the key parts of why these people, the different people in Federer's life, are so important, because they hold him accountable. They know him well. Well, put aside Ljubicic, and they haven't known each other for so long, but certainly with Mirka and Pierre, they've been together for so long. they just know Federer so well, and they hold him accountable. They have that elevated vision of him, and that's part of it. And Federer is always seeking to live up to the vision that they have for him. You see, they hold him accountable to the concept of Federer as genius, as the greatest ever. They believe he is the GOAT, and therefore Federer works so hard to kind of live up to that standard. So that's Pierre Paganini. He has been such a critical force in Federer's career. Federer is responsible individually, I believe, in the end for his greatness, but the people have meant so much. The people are important. He has dependencies. He's cultivated these relationships. He's not worked in isolation throughout his career. He's had relationships. He depends on people, and it's part of why he's great. So we're going to continue this discussion again with a discussion of Ljubicic and also a discussion of Mirka. Again, the basic theme, the people behind Federer's greatness. They exist. He has not been working in isolation. He has relationships. He depends on these people. They support him, and it's part of why he's so great. So I'm looking forward to continuing that discussion. Drop a comment about Paganini if you have any additional insights, and we can also begin a discussion about Mirka and Ljubicic if you want to, in anticipation of the next couple of episodes where I'll try to integrate that. So subscribe to the channel, keep tuning in, give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see and hear. There will be more coming on Indian Wells once we get the draw, and I will post again in the next day or two. Be well, bye-bye.